give us your vision of the futuristic city and how mobility fits in there.
Well, you've seen the presentation from Uber and from Skytrain. What you can see is actually nobody knows. That's the good news. The good news is also that something needs to change. We've seen the problem with congestion, the problem with safety. So we know that there is a massive problem. And as Michael Bloomberg was saying this morning, we know the problem. We don't know what we need to do to solve it, but something and technology will play a major role in solving that problem. So there will be a mix of mobility. The cities of the future will look completely different. There will be a mix of transportation, from autonomous cars, they will be there, from Skytrain and alternative means of transport. But the cities will have to change, and mobility will have to change fundamentally. So I'm seeing, my vision of the future is actually cities where you have autonomous cars. Today, a car at any time, 90% of cars are parked. Imagine if you don't have this anymore, the cities will be breathing again. Although, don't invest in car parks. If you have, if you've got a startup, maybe car park management may not be a long thing for the future. So basically, I think there will be, the cities will be breathing again with you can imagine electric bikes going around, people on longboards, people on Skytrain, and people in autonomous cars.
That's very interesting. I mean, earlier when I mentioned autonomous driving or levitating trains, I saw people smiling in the audience, etc. When I mentioned mapping, there's a little bit more hesitation. What's so cool about mapping, and why is it necessary to be able to make these futuristic technologies happen?
Yeah, mapping is at the heart of everything. So in mapping, you know about GPS. Now, GPS for autonomous driving is just not precise enough. An autonomous car will need to know exactly what it is on the road. They need to know what's happening around it to make a decision, whether to overtake or where to go. So basically, mapping is evolving. We're going to use artificial intelligence and within that deep learning to understand and mimic human behavior. So basically, the cars of tomorrow will know exactly to the centimeter where they are on the road. And the technology that TomTom is working on, actually, we're probably about a year to 2 years ahead of competition. And competition in this case is Google. And here is to put a car exactly in the right place on the road. And that's within 15 centimeters laterally and 50 centimeters vertically.
So will it be a race of who gets to the market first with this technology?
I think with 3 players and the big demand in mapping, I think there will be, and again, those technologies are very complex. And I said at the beginning, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. We will need to work in collaboration in an ecosystem. So I think everybody will play their part. There is, and there will be demand for all the technologies available. So I think all Google here and us are going to be very busy for the years to come.
And
map is cool. Map is really cool. It's really important, and that's really important for autonomous driving.
Maybe give us a sense of timing. We've been talking about driverless cars, it feels like for years now. When are we actually going to have the technology necessary to be able to get into one of those cars, feel safe, and have them work properly?
Well, if you believe McKinsey, you published a report, they say that by 2030, which is only 15 years away, 15% of new cars will be autonomous cars. So it's actually pretty much around the corner. Highly automated driving is already there, and I think someone will be talking later on from Volvo, and some car manufacturers are well advanced in highly automated cars. They already overtake and can make a lot of decisions. So actually, a lot of the technology is already there. What we're going to need is a legal framework. That's very important, and human behavior as well. How do humans will react with autonomous cars? That's also one of the issues that's important. So it's closer than one think. I think 15 to 20 years.
What are the obstacles to getting there at this point? I mean, a lot of the people I speak to often mention the hacking situation that we saw, earlier this year with connected cars. They express a little bit of worry about what this means with regard to safety. Are those the main obstacles to getting there?
No, I think cybersecurity and security is a problem for everything. Our life are governed by computers, so I think that's a problem that will be solved. I think there is a legislation framework. There is a customer acceptance as well. I mean, one has to accept that cars will be driving without a driver. So that's and the technologies need to get better. I think those are so it will take some time. But again, the problem that it is solving is so big, be it congestion in city, pollution, but also safety. We mentioned earlier the number of millions of people who die on the road every day, that it will happen. I'm convinced of that. And there's a lot of progress that's been made already. So I think the obstacles will be overcome relatively quickly because the problem that it's solving is really too big.
Tell us a little bit about the TomTom case. So I mentioned earlier how you've really faced extreme disruption in your traditional businesses and have been able to reinvent yourselves. Today, with regard to how mobility is changing, where is your business coming from? What are the segments that we should have in mind, and what's the most promising segments going forward?
Yeah, so if you look at TomTom, it's we were a startup a long time ago. We're going to celebrate 25 years this year. We started with 4 people 25 years ago, 3 engineers and myself. And we were making software for meter reading. So you can see that we've reinvented ourselves many times. We were actually a software publishers for the first, until 2004, when we released the first TomTom sat-nav. And we really changed the face in how people drive from A to B. I mean, we sold 80 million products. The company went from 20 people in 2004 to 5,000. We acquired a map maker in 2006. So today, TomTom is a 1 billion turnover company with 5,000 people. So how we've done that? Well, we created a product that was very successful. And everybody knows that success on typical product, at some point you peak. And I think we were diversified early on in the process. Our vision was always to know everything about the road, and that motivated the purchase of TeleAtlas. And today, this is exactly what we're doing with defining road DNA and high-definition maps for autonomous driving. So TomTom today is really working on being the provider of technology for the cities of tomorrow's, and we are out of our 5,000 people, we've got probably in excess of 3,000 working very much on those map technology. So that's we believe in the future of mobility in smart cities, and that's where we're putting a lot of our efforts.
And looking at the market for mobility, where's the money going to come from in the coming maybe 5 years? Is it the car makers that you're looking at mostly? How do you see the market evolving, and where's the money going?
So we're working with, and again, I said, in partnership in an ecosystem that was said again this morning in the first session. You can't do this alone. So we are working with car manufacturers, and I've been working with car manufacturers for a while. I think you got people working on sensors and LiDAR, on mapping technology. In our case, is also getting real-time map update. Can you imagine what you really want is when the map changes, you want to get that change validated and broadcasted the same way as we do with traffic. So all that information is paramount, and those technology of validation, broadcasting of information as complex as traffic and mapping in real time. That's really key for the future. So we're working with car manufacturers. We're licensing our map data at the moment, our guidance, our routing, and our traffic information. So that's what's keep the fire burning, if you want, in the short term, but really with an eye on the long-term vision, which is really in this future of mobility.
And looking much farther ahead, could drones become an interesting market for you guys beyond cars?
No, I think we're really going to stick with what we're good at. I think it's one of the things as well when you always go back into your DNA as a company. Even so, we started making meter reading application. The one thing we do very well is making complex problems simple. I think, and TomTom has been well known that our sat-nav were popular because they just democratize navigation and make a complex problem easy to use for consumers. And I think that's where we're going to stay within the car, our area of expertise. We've got a lot of expertise in managing big data, and that's what we're doing in our wearable space now as well. We've embarked into sports watches and activity trackers, again looking at how can we mine that data and give it back to consumers in a meaningful way. So we will do this on mobility. Mobility is at the heart of everything we do with the technology we have, and we're porting some of that knowledge into the space of sports data and health data.
What would be your words of advice within an industry? You know, as you said, mobility is to be defined. Nothing's clear at this point. How do you move forward in the sort of, you know, haze of all of that, and how do you survive disruption as it's happening?
Yeah, I think in our case, I mean, again, if you can imagine a huge period of growth, you imagine 2008, and we have an economic crisis. We have just acquired a mapmaker for $3 billion. We've sold 70 million sat-navs, so the market is arriving at maturity, and Google gives navigation for free on mobile phone, all that at the same time. And you know, that's 2008, we're in 2016, and we're still going strong. Now, we've went through a very tough period, and I think as entrepreneurs, you need a high level of resilience. You need not to lose sight of the big ideas, where you want to go, and your vision. For us, behind the acquisition of TeleAtlas was really this idea of knowing everything about the road, which is a very different strategy from of our most famous competitors. So I think you don't lose sight of what you do, and in the meantime as well, you keep the wheels and you keep the car on the road. So you keep your business going, you'll be able to finance. In our case, we went to the stock exchange in 2005, but as the founders, we still kept the majority of the shares, just under 50%. And then you diversify. In our case, we created a telematics company, a map licensing business, a traffic licensing business, and a consumer business with the sat-nav still selling 3.5–4 million per year, and branched out into watches. So I think you need to first of all, don't give up. I think that's life as an entrepreneur is very hard, and I think Michael Bloomberg said that this morning. It's no plain sailing, and I think you need a huge amount of resilience and not losing sight of the big picture. And also you need to evolve in an environment where you can organize and reorganize yourself to safeguard the future of your company. But look long term and be resilient and keep going and have a great passion about what you do. I think in our case, we always kept an eye on the problem we were trying to solve, and I think that's important. As Michael Bloomberg said this morning, people don't always know the problem you're trying to solve. When we brought our first sat-nav to market, people said we were crazy, this was never going to work, and nobody wanted to touch us with a barge pole. And I was that girl who knocked on the same door twice, when it closed, as Michael Bloomberg said this morning, you knock on the other door. Well, I went knocking back on the same doors, and at some point people just let you in and give you a little bit of time and credit. So keep knocking on the same doors, believe in what you do, and good luck.
What do you make of some of the competition that we're seeing in this space from players that are really just gigantic and have deep pockets in terms of R&D? When you're a small company starting out and you're hoping to make it in mobility, how do you survive the Googles or even the Heres of this world?
Yeah, I think the big companies also mean less agility. I think there are cycles, and I believe that you get disruptors. So you disrupt an industry, you get disrupted yourself, and then you can disrupt again. The advantage of startup today are new companies in technology, and they start with a blank sheet of paper, and they can really write. Technology is moving extremely fast. In the world of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and now deep learning, there is a lot to be had, and those big gigantic companies have got difficulties on getting agile enough. So I think there's a lot of room for startup or for that ecosystem to be specializing and taking one particular problem and try to tackle it better than anyone. And they've got that agility and the fact that they can just start from scratch. So I think that, and also the world is getting so complex that, again, you need an ecosystem of companies to make it happen. So I think there is future for that environment. And that's the reason why you see a lot of startup in technology as well. It is going so fast that we need a collaborative approach.
And what do you make of the link between, mapping and health? You're the perfect example of that. We've seen Apple make a massive push into health as well. That's one of the hottest segments alongside mobility. How does that all link together? And when we go back to an approach of looking at the futuristic city as a whole, how does that all fit together in terms of business strategy?
Well, I think that, again, it's all, at the end of the day, it's all about data. We've been, now big data is very popular. We probably were talking, we did big data before everybody was talking about big data. For us, mapping and navigation has always been about analyzing gazillions of data points. That's the nature of our business. Now, what you're going to see in health is the same thing. We're going to need to, with the type of data we're getting in an anonymous way, of course, that's also a very important topic, we'll be able to look at preventive. So if you wear your sports watch with your heart rate, you can start analyzing your resting heart rate. And if your resting heart rate is changing dramatically, maybe you can predict that, you maybe should go and see your cardiologist. There are things like that. That's just one example. But we will also be able to give data to consumers to look at their fitness level and at their real fitness age, which is in relation with their normal age, to try to do more and live longer. So preventive medicine is really important, and there will be a lot of progress and disruption that will happen there as well.
And maybe a final question about ecosystems globally. Obviously, this conference is happening in Paris. We're seeing a big push from cities like Amsterdam to try and attract tech companies and get things going there. What do you see at a global scale as sort of emerging ecosystems or places that you're particularly excited about?
Well, first of all, I'm really welcoming Europe as I can see a lot of energy in Europe on the tech scene, and that's really pleasing me, because when we invented, in the business, we invented GSM. You remember phone manufacturers being called Nokia and Ericsson, and now they're called Apple and Samsung. So what's important is actually that Europe fights back and that we create good technology ecosystem. We've got the talent, we've got the engineers, the brain power. We don't always sell ourselves as well as we should, and so it's great. It's a great pleasure to see actually big ecosystem in Berlin, in London, in Paris, in Amsterdam, of talent working together to really giving Europe again the technology glory that it deserves. So I think that it's very encouraging, and to see so much attention, and that's the reason why I like talking at those events as well. It's really to say, look, it is possible. We come out of Europe. We've had a huge impact globally, and we will play our part in history again in the next 25 years. European technology needs to stand up and have the ambition of changing the world. The road is not going to be easy, and there's going to be risk, and we talked this morning about risk-taking and failure. Trust me, I know all about it. It's going down and putting yourself up, but it's really worth the journey, because we can all together really make a difference and change the world a little bit.
Very positive message. Thank you, Corinne.